many people have a broad knowledge about it, but in the first section, I will explain it in depth. As you know, in the former 7 years, it was used mainly for agricultural projects. And what has happened now is that we use it much more broadly for the whole cluster 6. So that's natural resources, food systems, bioeconomy, etc. So we strengthened it, we streamlined it also so that more actors and more ways of dissemination are possible. But the basics are really still the same. We have missions, that's clear. From the Commission side, we have a Green Deal, we have farm to fork targets, so the food system is in there, and there's all even data and targets there. So it's time to step up our efforts because time goes quickly. Our multi-actor approach is a polyvalent tool, meaning it can serve any mission in principle, whether it's agroecology or digital transition. You can use it because it's systematic, a generic approach. That's key. We use it under Horizon 2020, now under Horizon Europe much broadly, but at the same time, under the CAP, we also have our operational groups with exactly the same multi-actor approach. We call those innovation projects operational groups, but the system behind and the requirements, they are the same. So it's for us, that's our experience of many evaluations that we've passed in the last year. It's a clear list of well-defined requirements that form fully part of the topic. So if the multi-actor approach is not sufficiently tackled and it is a multi-actor topic, you will be scored down as a project. So it's a really must. All our multi-actor projects are automatically responsible research and innovation, and they make research more demand-driven and ready to apply. The requirements I will quickly go through you are in full in the introduction of the work program. And as I said, just made a bit more generic, the basic principles are still the same as in the former 7 years, because our experience has been growing and it shows that it is the way to go. We only clarified certain things where people didn't understand. And I give you a typical example. End users was understood sometimes as the people who benefit from it. So if a farming practice is tested to make farmers change their ways, of course, if they use less pesticides, also the citizens and the consumers will profit, but they are not the end users. So we started to say not end users, but end users of project results. So all these tiny things we did, but the basics really are the same. And we added also literally now to cover the whole cluster, things like actors, citizens, consumers, local communities, etc. They can all be actors in all these projects. And there are main 6 bullets with obligations. They are judged under the excellence criteria, meaning the one with the highest weight. And they are linked to the clarity and pertinence of the objectives and the soundness of the concept of how to work together. What is important is that it's not just a cross-cutting issue like the other ones, but it must serve transitional purposes thanks to the co-ownership we create with these non-scientific actors, the co-creation they do during the project from the very start, and the fact that the non-scientific actors also should co-decide. Take care. Multi-actor approach is not multidisciplinarity, it's not pluridisciplinarity, it's not interdisciplinarity. You can't compare it with living labs neither, because there's still not sufficient clear requirements. nor too strong dissemination requirements to connect to the practice or to a broad stakeholder board, etc. It's really something very precisely defined, although also these other things are steps in the right direction, but they all miss one or more of the essential elements you need to have a good multi-actor approach and to really make this transition. So it's key to have an adequate mix of relevant actors. And let me explain you what actor means. Actor means that it is a partner who takes part in the project activities. So he contributes really to the project outcomes. There are our key words: co-creation, they co-decide, they get co-ownership, get proud on what they make, and they are really co-responsible. And the difference with what we have had for ages, I think, stakeholder boards, is that such stakeholders, they are people expressing a view, a stake at a certain moment or moments during the projects. But the experience is, on the one hand, that these stakeholders feel less engaged, sometimes even disappointed because they are not listened to. It's still the project coordinator and the people who are partner in the project who take the decisions. So they are a kind of sounding board, and what they say will only be taken up if the project owners want to listen and act upon. So here, if we say actor, we are in a different mode. So never mix up actor with stakeholder. Here are our requirements. So first of the 6 bullet is about project proposal objectives and the planning. Do they target needs and problems or opportunities of the end users of the project results? Why? Because this is the way to get your users motivated, to help develop, and then they will really be motivated to implement also the ready-made. There will be more ready-made solutions coming out of the projects. Number 2 is the composition of the consortium. We already said it. We need a balanced choice of the rightly chosen, the relevant ones that can really help, key actors with complementary types of knowledge. So the building blocks are expected to come as well from science as from practice or from intermediaries. Those who can really help for the objectives, those are the ones to put in. It's not a question to have as many as possible. It's a targeted choice that can only contribute to the objectives in the multi-actor approach. Is another important element linked with that is that these actors in the consortium, scientists and non-scientists, all along the project, they should work together and have a clear role, from the planning of the work and the experiments, their execution, until the dissemination of the results. The non-scientists should not feel like outsiders. They should really be motivated to think together and to give their inputs. So this implies also mutual respect, and by this we unleash this practical and tacit knowledge of practitioners or whoever is an actor in the project. And the result is, of course, that acceptance and dissemination of all the outcomes are much speeded up, thanks to also cross-fertilization of the ideas and views, and multipliers, facilitators are important, as well as the connection with operational groups who work at local level and have sometimes very good experiences that you can compare in a big European project from one country to the other, and that bring extra information if you work on a similar topic. Third bullet, project proposal should illustrate sufficient quantity and quality of knowledge exchange activities. If you work together, you co-decide, you co-create, you have to exchange often. We had problems with evaluators in the beginning that they found there was too much blah blah, too much meetings. No, we need this, otherwise scientists and practitioners have very different views, very different time spans, and you really need to put money in this knowledge exchange. The idea is really that they are not a study object. It's not applied research. It's not the testing field. They have to really use their entrepreneurial skills, their tacit knowledge, and have the feeling of co-ownership so that they are motivated to really apply. Then this is a general one that you could have in any project. What's the project added value? You have to demonstrate in your application that you're complementary with what already exists and best practices. I already mentioned the operational groups, but there are so many national projects where, or European or whatever fund projects that can help. Then the project should, of course, result in something that can be applied, practical knowledge, made easily understandable, that forms part of the project. It's not just sufficient to write a scientific article, because we want to get it towards these end users by the most used existing dissemination channels. And then further on, we also want to communicate within Europe. And we have now a common EIP format, but we will have further ambitions that I will talk later about you. So for the time being, we share on the EIP network. And this is also the place where people can connect with each other, where they can find each other if they are working on a similar subject. So that's it about the requirements. And I was asked also to give you quickly, and now I'm going much more quickly on the rest of the presentation, a view on what's happening and how this synergy between Horizon Europe and the CAP works. You know that, as I said, involvement of operational groups is strongly recommended in our multi-actor projects or our thematic networks. The EIP networks, both at EU level and at national level, they ensure these connections, and we have this unique EU repository with contacts and practice abstracts. So short knowledge, just 20 lines about the project and the links and the videos, etc. We have a Green Deal to tackle, but strange maybe, we didn't expect it in fact, already 65% of our operational groups are working on environment climate issues. And this shows that missions are not always set by politics, because we have a lot of these operational groups who come bottom up, and they tackle what they already see as a problem. So it's not always top-down missions. Things come from the bottom. And this is a very nice illustration. And we even put one step further. And in Ireland, in fact, they picked up this, but now several countries are doing that. Our operational groups, having also a multi-actor approach, they have become a useful instrument to test a policy, to test future CAP interventions, agro-environmental measures, for instance. They can be tested out with the future beneficiaries, again, creating motivation, co-ownership, bringing in their entrepreneurial ideas and improving the measure. So we discovered this and we're promoting it now also towards the next period. This is a bit a state of play. All our member states are in, except Luxembourg, and we get out of that a growing and thriving network. And our big challenge now is how to manage all this interaction, how to communicate, how to disseminate. And there, by accident, we had a first project under thematic networks, the thematic network of thematic networks, and they already made an explorer's guide, because thematic networks, they collect existing knowledge, existing best practices. So they are there just a simple concept, multi-actor project type, to maximize user engagement and impact. And they worked a lot on how to best do that. They made a guide of this. You have the link here. But we're going further. We put in our call for 2019 a feasibility project to see if we could make at EU level a practice-oriented knowledge reservoir, which is easy, accessible, much more interactive than what we have on the EIP Agri website. People could react, multilingual, attractive, nice photos and videos directly with a push on the button, accessible. And this is now growing in these two projects. They call it Farm Book. So it would be an attractive, easy searchable, interactive, so comments can come from which new projects can grow, new operational groups, new multi-actor project ideas can grow, and it will be multilingual. Now, in our CAP, what we do there, we organize the necessary means. We went from funding only the projects and the innovation support to funding the whole ACIS. And Lawrence already referred to that. Why? Because ACIS coordination will bring all these actors together to speed up knowledge exchange and, most of all, implementation into practice. Now, I have to correct a little bit because as Coca-Cola doesn't change their name, we don't want to change our A in ACIS neither. But ACIS is in fact the organization and interaction of all persons who use and produce innovation. So in the time that we were still purely on the agricultural side, it would be mainly farmers, foresters, advisors, researchers, but also NGOs, networks, retailers, media services, etc. And now with the ACIS, we will have a whole innovation ecosystem, which will relate to whatever farming and rural activities connect to. So this goes from landscape, environment, climate, biodiversity, but also food systems and non-food systems, consumers, citizens, including transformation and working together with the distribution chains and the supply chains. So our A is still there because it was a start. We don't want to change our logo, but it's more than the A. There's no need to put further letters there. We've had proposals of ACIS and AFCIS for the forestry, etc. Listen, they're all in there, and ACIS comes really from the researchers themselves who saw that the linear model didn't work anymore. So here's CAP with all these 9 specific objectives, the more economically, the more environment, climate ones, but also 3 on citizen concerns, food and health, and rural areas, and a cross-cutting objective. And under this cross-cutting objective, we have a lot of tools. We cover all these 9 objectives that were in the former slide. We changed completely our farm advisory system to cover all sustainability issue and to cover all public and private advisors. We fund advice, demo, no maximum amounts anymore, knowledge exchange actions of any kind, whether it's discussion groups, demonstration on farm, winter meetings, whatever, training as well for farmers, as for advisors, as for farm workers, as for education, etc. This should all fit in a strategic approach, not be piecemeal little measures, but they should be a big view for each country because they are all very different, and one will need a little bit more this and the other one will need a little bit more that because they have national instruments maybe already covering certain things. Then on top of that, we have our CAP networks. We will continue there with this innovation strand and networking events. And we've made our operational groups even more attractive with advance payments and more support and a derogation of state aid, which is very, very important for all the more social energy bioeconomy, which fell out of Annex 1 and could not have the 100% support. And exactly there, we need 100% support because there are no private companies wanting to pay for that. So we also arranged for that. Now, we hope to have the regulation agreed May, but for the time being, with my experience as I see trialogues every week, I think it will more go to June. And then member states, they are already drafting their CAP plans and they have to submit them by next year, 1st of January. This one I'm going to skip. I think time is running, but just if you have time later on, you can take a look to Horizon Europe's new structure, which is different, how the logic is built, and how it also supports the future CAP. The AKIS supporting projects are under Destination 7, Innovative Governance. So I think transition, and if you want to put people in motion, it's a bit like a herd of sheep. You need a real strict pushing like the sheepdogs do. And this will speed up transitions thanks to the multi-actor research, the knowledge exchange, and this co-innovation. So thanks a lot for listening to me. And please, the words back to you, Jerry.